Hey everyone, it's Elliot. I'm back. It's been a minute. I had a little siesta from making stuff, so I don't know. Also, I'm going no glasses today. I was looking at the lighting with the video, and I don't know. I don't have like glare-free glasses or anything crazy like that, and it makes me look really bad and washed out. So, pardon me. It's been a minute since I recorded anything, and I don't think I'm gonna put the Fear one up. I'm probably just gonna re-record it at some point. Maybe. Anyway, welcome. Thanks for listening again. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're okay. It's getting chilly out. So I'm got my house robe on. I don't know, I might make it just a series of things instead of just regular plain t-shirts. Whatever. So, I've been thinking about, like, metalworking a lot. It's been coming up a lot with, like, just forging things and the process of metalworking, I guess. I've always thought it was just interesting and cool because, you know, I'm a nerd and I like swords, and, you know, where do swords come from? You craft them from metal. Well, turns out everything that's metal is crafted, by the way. And, I mean, a lot of it's machines. We'll get there. Anyway, back in middle school, we did a career shadow day is what we called it. It was a weird little thing. Like, we had to call a business and set a date. Like, we didn't go into school that day. We had to go and, like, just shadow somebody on their job. And then we never, like, presented our project for it or anything. Like, I think I had to write a paper, and, like, I brought some stuff in, but pardon me, I haven't had coffee yet. Anyway, for my project, I found a blacksmith in Emporia and called him up, did the shadow thing. It was embarrassing now thinking about it because I just kind of like stood in one corner of his workshop and just watched him do stuff for like an hour or two or something, and I just stood like completely still, terrified. It was so loud. I didn't think about that at the time, that machines hammering metal and stuff like that, it's not a quiet profession. Earplugs. And I didn't learn a whole lot because I didn't retain it, because it was just like, I don't know. It was weird. Middle school was a bad time for me, obviously, and I'm sure it was a bad time for a lot of people, so keep that in mind. I was at the height of probably the worst I've ever been in my whole life, in every aspect, measurable or immeasurable. It was bad. Middle school was bad, you guys. I don't have to tell you that anymore. Well, you did show me, though, during the career day thing. It was kind of cool. He was working on, at the time, he was working on, like, redoing the handrails for the Granada Theater, which I thought was like, oh, okay, he doesn't, like, make swords every day, he doesn't make axes and stuff like that, you know, it's just a fantasy. My romantic notion, the romantic idea of a blacksmith, right, that people always think about, or not, maybe not everybody, but fantasy nerds think about is a dwarf, you know, hammering shit to make stuff. It was cool, but it's not realistic. It's not real life. Back in the day, before we had, like, machine processes and stuff, like, everything that was made out of metal, like iron and bronze and things, I don't know enough about it. That's the thing, too, is I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, by the way, so, like, fair warning. I don't know anything about the actual metalworking profession. This isn't a podcast episode about like, if you're a trade worker or anything. It's not me. I'm sorry. I'm here to talk about, like, nonsense philosophy and stuff. So Um. Oh, anyway, one of the cool things that he showed me, as I was getting ready to leave, he had like a pattern press or something, and he like I don't know, he made a nail, like an old school, like a nail that you would put into nail back when nails didn't come in boxes of like a million little tiny perfect nails that you hit with a hammer. They were like, you had to like make every nail, and that's a wild notion to me to think about. Stuff, as I was writing up the idea for this episode, I was in the laundromat, and I just stopped for a second, and I looked around at, like, all the metal stuff, like door hinges, and doorknobs, and, like, door handles. I don't know why I keep going to doors. I looked over at the doors, specifically. But all that stuff had to be made by hand at one point in time. And it makes me stop and, like, really understand how much I take for granted these days. I know I harp on that a lot. I'm pretty sure I talked about that a bunch. But I really take stuff for granted. Like, a lot. That I know that, like, I'm gonna keep coming back to, like, machine and factory assembly stuff, and I don't really have a major point. I like that we have automation. I'm not gonna harp on that. I'm not gonna say automation is bad and we should go back to hand making all of our nails or anything like that. But it just makes me realize, like, all of the nice things that we do have that we don't think about, that we could just go, replace something. Like my glasses. I'm not wearing them because they're not broken. I'm just not wearing them. But when my glasses break, how simple it is to like swap out a little tiny screw, or pop the piece that connects to your ear. I'm really bad with words. Why am I recording this right now? I don't know. It's been a minute, and I needed to do something today. The stuff we're taking for granted. Mundane metal products that are just so cheap and easy to come by. Sorry, I shook my desk there. That we take for granted. That it's like we don't have... If somehow all of our robots just shut down tomorrow, like, what would you do if you needed to replace a light bulb? It's probably a bad example. Light bulbs are really, it's a good thing we have machine processing for light bulbs, because it's a whole, like, vacuum sealing process. Anyway, I don't know anything about light bulbs. But, like, what would you do if... God, what's something mundane? I don't know. Regular stuff. Just regular stuff. If it all stopped and you had to, like, hand forge stuff again. You know how much that would be such a pain, dude. People who can do metalworking now would be, like, in crazy high demand. It would be nuts. There'd be so much competition. It'd be crazy. It's not as... It wasn't as it was a glimpse at, like... It's not as glamorous as a fantasy world would want you to believe, being a blacksmith. It's not forging the fucking sickest sword of all time ever, every single day. It was more like making horseshoes, because horses were the main transportation. They were like, they were like mechanics. It was going in and getting your tires rotated. It was like you would go to a local blacksmith and he would forge you some new horseshoes for your horse. Kybillion. I don't know what your horse's name is. I don't know where that name came from. But that was, like, your car at the time. So, like, you had to get new horseshoes. What are you gonna do? Like, have your horse not... I don't know what horseshoes do. It protects their feet, probably. I don't know anything, you guys. My level of actual intellect is way lower than I want people to think it is. I don't have a whole lot of knowledge, actual working knowledge about stuff. A lot of theory, and what is that gonna get me? Anyway, a super successful podcast. Anyway. But even, like, before we made plastics, like, there were a lot of stuff now that we make with, like, plastic and ceramic, or maybe not ceramic, that's a bad example, but, like, plastic stuff that's everywhere. And then, like, aluminum, I guess aluminum isn't plastic. I don't know the history of aluminum. It's a byproduct of something, I'm sure. I don't know. Aluminum's whatever. It's a metal. Before we even had plastic, most stuff was made out of metal and wood. And the people who could make the stuff with the products that we had at the time, they're craftsmen. It's ingenious. I like it. I like the idea that as a human being, we can transform things. We can make things. We can take a hunk of rock and carve into it and, make something out of it. Probably wasn't a good example either. I'm not on it with my examples. I didn't practice or do any, I didn't do any warm-up rounds before this recording, so forgive me. Might be doing some audio editing. Not audio, video editing. See, I don't know what I'm saying. It's just cool. I think it's cool. I think you should think it's cool too. Because it's I don't know. It's not uniquely human. I guess animals build stuff. But do animals create art? Or do they really just make stuff for function, It's a good question. I didn't really think about, like, a beaver dam. Do you consider a beaver dam art? Let me know. Because it's just their house, right? Would you say somebody who built their house created a work of art that they could live in? Where's the line? I don't know. But it's I don't know. It's something that I've always been attracted to it. But I have an affinity for anything creative. I mean, anything. Like, just... I don't know, I can't physically do everything. There are too many things. There's so much. You can't physically do it. I don't know. I'm going off on a tangent. I don't know what I'm talking about. I would say I have an affinity for anything creative. I certainly I haven't done any metalworking myself, so this isn't me saying, oh, it's so cool and you should build a forge. I'd like a forge. That'd be sick. It's on my list of, like, dream home with, like, land and workshop and studio and the forge and the, I don't know. It'd be cool. It'd be really cool to have a forge. Archery range also needs to be in there, too. Anyway. Big bookcase library? I don't have enough books for a library. The underlying process of transforming things is what I really have been thinking about lately. The idea of taking something and making it into something else through, I don't know, is it just, how do you say it? Through sheer force of will? Through sheer energy production? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what I was getting at. Hang on. It's something to be admired, I think, in this in the first world country that I live in, that really the mass amount of people were set up to, the average person is set up to be primarily a consumer. You're not out making food for yourself. We've got farmers to make food for us. You're going to the grocery store and picking out ingredients and cooking them. Maybe you're going to a fast food restaurant. They're just straight up cooking your food for you. Maybe you're, I don't know. We haven't been programmed to provide for ourselves like a lot of our essential needs and our baseline needs. I don't know any other better word. Our baseline stuff is taken care of for us because we set up a series of jobs and professions and yada yada yada, whatever. We're most people, I would say most people, are consumers, primarily consumers and not producers. It's easy. It's so easy. They've made this life so easy for us to just consume and not think about and not really reproduce anything to control. I don't know. Maybe just the continuation of the human species and stuff. I don't know. Sorry. We're set up primarily to consume. And I'm not advocating to go back to barter system or anything like that. That sucks. That's so much work. That's way too much effort. I like the crazy supply that we have. It's wild. It's abundance. It's insane abundance, but it's so not stressful to think about, what am I gonna do for dinner? Even though I'm responsible for my own meals as a grown-up. It's not hard. It's not hard. It's very easy to just maintain bottom level function. Very easy. It's very easy to function in this life is what I was trying to say. Automation and mass production. Because of automation, too. Automation plays into it. Mass production plays into it. You make robots and gadgets and things that can do jobs that make it so that we don't have to do those jobs. But then, I don't know, over time we forget how to do those things, right? Definitely more so manufacturing than farming too. So I'm not talking about farmers. Farmers are awesome. Farmers are cool. You guys make food. You make my life so easy, and I like it. But I take it for granted. That's the downside of an easy life, is that you end up not appreciating it. We don't appreciate it, and it's easy to critique. Makes things easy to poke holes in if you don't know how. If you don't know how the sausage is made, right? I mean, think about how that even extends to media. Think of how many, like, movie critics or, like, video game journalists or, people who just make a living making, like, YouTube videos, pointing out how shitty stuff is all the time. But they're not making movies. What are they? That's always a common pushback that people don't. I'm sure you hear it, but it's not something you actually think about. Of like, hey, that movie sucked. Yeah, well, why don't you make a movie? And you're like, well, why don't I? Oh, because it's an incredibly daunting process, and there's a lot of work involved into it, and it's more hassle than it's worth, really. So, like, I get why there's a lot of money involved in it and stuff, but, whatever. I'm also not trying to defend shitty movies or bad art in general. It's just, it's really easy to talk shit on stuff that you haven't had a hand in making. Like, that extends to everything, really. In fact, my other podcast is mostly me talking shit on stuff that I have no idea about, for the most part. So, to show you how easy that is, there's 70-some episodes of me just talking mad shit on everything. And, I don't know. It's easy to do, but it's not contributing. It's not being productive. It's not living a productive life, I guess. It's just more consuming. It's just the other side of consuming, is consuming and digesting. I live on a lot of metaphors. All this to say is that I've been thinking about creating a lot, the creative process, recently. I feel that there's this calling to make things and to transform things and to manipulate my environment, and not manipulate in like a dark psychosis way, but just physically with your hands do things. And I always think about where that comes from. I try to think about where it comes from. What's the driving force behind wanting to affect your environment, I guess. And I think that part of that is alchemy. I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent here, because this wasn't intentionally, I wasn't going to talk about alchemy, but I thought about it and I had to write it down. So, a lot of people think about alchemy as the old, like, turning lead to gold. I wrote down that's just taking away 3 protons from gold to make lead. Or from lead to make gold. Or to add 3 protons to lead will make gold. Something like that. Anyway. Science and chemistry. I did not do very good in chemistry class. I don't know. I can't remember why. I don't know. It was letters. I understand letters. I didn't understand the language of chemistry, I think. It was a big deal. But anyway. Old school, really, old school chemistry. Old school, just the scientific method, cataloging everything that we know in this universe. It's way more complex and nuanced than I can talk to you about. But alchemy was sort of like the proto-science, is sort of how I understand it. That before... I don't know. To be honest, I don't know enough about alchemy in a real life, not like fictionalized alchemy. But it boils down to the idea of maybe not somebody creating a miracle, but someone finding the thing that they need to plug in to the formula to make gold, right? That's the process of alchemy, because there's always the search for the philosopher's stone and the ultimate solvent and the ultimate soluble or something like that. I don't know. But that's like if you take away the physical aspect of it, it's the metaphorical, it's the figurative search for that little missing piece, right? That's how I understand it anyway. And that's what I got from the book The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. It's been years since I read it, so I don't remember a lot of the details. But from memory, this is the story. I'll give you a little rundown on The Alchemist. From my memory, there's a young man living in his hometown. He's got aspirations to travel, adventure, to go out and find meaning in his life because he doesn't feel that his life has any meaning. I think maybe he's a shepherd and just like in his town, and he's just herding sheep, and he's just what am I doing with my life? I'm just herding sheep like my father and his father before him, something like that. Feeling useless. He feels that he has no divine purpose. He has no calling in his life. And something sets him off on a journey. He leaves his hometown. He's doing travel. He's traveling. Finally, he's going out meeting people. Specifically meets an alchemist, or a known alchemist. There's a lot of philosophy in it, and there's a whole like mentee thing. I can't do it justice now because it's been years. I need to reread the book and just do a whole episode on it. I'll do that eventually. But I need to get a copy of The Alchemist. I don't own every book I've read. I don't think a lot of people do. I liked taking books from libraries. I like libraries. Anyway. But the main gist, the thing that I took away from The Alchemist was he didn't need to go on this grand adventure for purpose and with there being some sort of prize at the end of the journey because he already had it within him. And I know that's a cliche, but he already has the power within himself to create and to live the ideal life because he can make it himself in his own hometown. And also there's probably a lot of lessons about like similar to what I was talking about, taking things for granted and not appreciating the things, your environment that you live in, the people that you meet, the community. I know there's a lot more to it. I'll break it down, but that one little part resonated with me, that you have the means of creating pretty much anything you want. The trick is that it's a mental game as well as like a physical game. You can't say, oh, I'm gonna build some wings and fly. I mean, you can figure it out, I'm sure. There's jetpacks and stuff. But unless you feel like you're actually flying with those wings, then you won't actually even be flying. Say you jump off a cliff with some wings that you built, and you totally intend to fly. And you catch wind, and you don't immediately plummet to your death. That's not the example I'm going for here. Let's say you jump off the cliff, you've got the wings, and you're not like flapping, you're not like flying like you wanted to. Really, you're just kind of gliding downward, and you still don't feel like you are flying, that you have any control over it, really. Then you've still never been flying, even after that point. Right? Does that make sense? And not because you're not physically flapping your wings and flying, but like, if you set the bar at that's what it is. If you set the bar at, I am controlling the flight, and I'm 100% in control of the flight of my flight path, so to speak. But you never reach that actual point of control. Then if you don't feel like you've accomplished the task, you don't ever actually feel like you've locked that into place, then I don't think that makes sense. I think I'm going to cut a lot of that. I think I'm going to cut a chunk of that. So excuse me, I went on a tangent that doesn't make any sense. The point of the real point of what I'm trying to say is that understanding that you have the power to change things in your life and affect your environment, you can physically change things. You can mentally change things too. You can spiritually change things within yourself even. And because of that power that we hold within ourselves, we don't feel it all the time. But if you remember that you can, just the simple fact that you can is a combat to nihilism for me personally, because you could sit around and say, oh, nothing matters, that whatever, heat, death of the universe, XYZ, blah 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 blah, get real down about it and be like, why do anything? Nothing matters. We're all stardust and we'll return to stardust one day. Yes, sure. But all of that energy that you're using to mourn your own death prematurely, you can be using to create your ideal life, your ideal situation, the things that you want to do, the places you want to be, the feelings that you want to feel. You have the power to do and say and think and feel all of those things. And I think that that's important, and you also shouldn't take that for granted. Maybe that's the main gist of this episode, is stop for a second in your day. Let's say tomorrow. Let's say you're listening to this. Let's say tomorrow, when you're going to work or you're going out to perform some mundane task. Maybe you need to go get groceries. Next time you're in the grocery store, here we go. Specific example. Next time you're in the grocery store, go into the produce section and just look at all of the crazy fruits and vegetables that you can just pick up and buy at any time during the year. Think about it. We're almost in December now, and you can still get, apples, and maybe apples is a bad example. I know it's a fall fruit. You can still get like oranges. Oranges are a winter fruit, I think. because it's summer in the southern hemisphere, but they're mostly grown. I don't know. I don't know anything about botany either. But anyway, just stop for a second and think about how lucky you are to be able to have that variety of fruits and vegetables. Are they the best quality? Probably not. You know, are they sprayed with a bunch of pesticides? Probably. But nothing's perfect. But that abundance is there. And just stop and recognize it. Stop and recognize it for a second. Just how lucky you are to be able to do that. And if you're not lucky enough to be able to do that, I mean, that sucks. I'm sorry. Life isn't fair. Life sucks sometimes. And I don't know what to do about it a lot of the time. I don't know what I was getting at with that. I don't know. I lost the thread of where I was going because I kept imagining grocery stores and stuff. So, yeah. Thanks for listening. I promise I haven't fully given up on this project yet. Sometimes I just need to sit with my thoughts for weeks, or sometimes I need to just not be playing as much Magic the Gathering as I have been lately. It's absolutely absorbing me. It's terrible. It's not terrible, it's great. But anyway, thank you for listening, and yeah, I'll see you next time. Take care of yourself.